Hi everyone, it's another fantastic episode of Heart to Heart with Bumi Alabi. I'm super excited to have you here once again. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you an incredible testimony of engineer Mrs. Abolarinwa, which was featured in my book, Couples Waiting Room. And I believe their story is going to inspire, educate, and also raise hope of as many people as are going through this waiting period. I want you to know that this phase will soon be over. But before then, I would like to know your opinion about this. Do you feel trying to make babies immediately after marriage or intentionally waiting for some years before making babies increases the bond between couples? You can drop your view in the comment section. Now, let's listen to the testimony of engineer Lola Abolarinwa.
I'm engineer Lola Abolarinwa. I was born on the 5th of December 1978. I got married on the 5th of November 2005. I'm married to engineer Lola Abolarinwa. I met him in school and we courted for about 2 years and got married. And interestingly, when I got married in 2005, I never imagined that I was going to have any challenges giving birth. In fact, I actually told my husband that we should spend the first year of our marriage getting to know each other and not really think about childbearing. Well, I was to later regret that statement because when I now started having, challenges and the babies were not coming, I almost felt that was it because I said I wanted to use the first year of my marriage to get to know my husband. Well, but I thank the Lord, eventually he answered our prayers. So the journey started, every bride, especially in the African culture, once you are married, the first month, the second month, everybody begins to look at you strangely. They want to see if there are changes in your body. So for me, it wasn't an issue. Honestly, the first year, I was quite comfortable, not conceiving. Because like I said earlier, I felt I should get to know my husband better, become friends, establish our paths in life, our career, the work of our hands and all of that. So, but by the second year, it became a source of concern because then I saw that, this thing is really an issue. Month after month, the periods came and there was no conception. I began to kind of panic. I began to worry and to be disturbed. I started going to the hospital for tests. Initially my husband was like, he's not going for any test, there's nothing wrong with him, he's fine and all of that, but I was bothered, so I went for a couple of tests. At one time they said I had fibroids. My husband joined his faith with mine, we prayed, and miraculously, without any surgery, the fibroids disappeared. So that was one of the first miracles that God did for me. And then at another time they said my fallopian tubes were blocked and I had to undergo HSG 5 times. And I must tell you, that's a very, very, very painful procedure that any woman has to go through. And I know the women that are still waiting on God today, they can tell you those experiences are not pleasant at all. So I went through HSG to kind of clear my fallopian tubes, and then later they said my husband had to do sperm counts and all of that, and he did it, everything was normal. So the question then was, what was the cause of the delay? Okay, so we kept trying, and one thing I learned in all of these things was just to keep my hope alive in God and my interest in having children active. Okay, so I kept ensuring that all around me I had children. In fact, a lot of people did not know I had not yet given birth because my children, my sister's children, were always with me. Every time she would send them to my house, I practically raised them from like childhood. They were always with me. I bathe them, I take them out. And then my neighbors, I had a little boy, a Ghanaian, and then, his mom works outside the home. So he's always with me I buy chin chin, granules, you know. So I always had children around me. So that kind of kept me motivated. Then also my faith, each time I went to Shiloh, which is the annual retreat program of my church, I attend Living Faith Church worldwide. Number one on my prayer request was this issue of childbirth, you know. And we used to attend what we call the Mothers of Nation, where we hear testimonies of people who have gone through various, you know, number of years of delays. And that really kept my faith alive. I heard of people who gave birth after 26 years, after 15 years, after 10 years, you know. So mine was like 3 years altogether. So I knew that if it is happening around me, definitely it's going to be my turn one of these days. So I kept attending the Mother of Nation classes each time I went for Shiloh, you know, at the end of the year. So, and also medically, I never relented. I just knew that if I kept, you know, working at it, eventually it's going to come true. So people suggested to me to take, you know, something as simple as vitamin E. I discovered that by taking vitamin E, you know, my hormonal balance was kind of restored. Then there was also one drink that was recommended to me then, which I took, which was the Tahitian noni, very, just a normal everyday juice. But I took it, my husband also took it. So altogether, I know it is God that eventually gave us children. It's not about what you do or what you do not do. But when God decides to intervene, then he does it in a wonderful way. So exactly 3 years. So I gave birth to my son, Isaac Olamide, January 8, 2009. It was 3 years and 1 month after I got married. And shortly after then, I had another son. In fact, it was surprising because by the time Olamide was 1 year old, I took in again and gave birth to my second son. But unfortunately, we lost him after 4 months. He went to be with the Lord. Then started another journey of infertility. And I think medically they call it secondary infertility. When you've had one child and then you are finding it difficult to have another. And I know there are quite a lot of women out there. Some have children that are 15 years old and they are still trusting God that they still want to have a second or a third or a fourth child. So I went through that. You know, it took me almost another 5 years before I had my daughter, who now is my second born. And I must tell you that was very difficult. Difficult in the sense that I had a son, I had a second son who went to be with the Lord. So there was this huge hole in my heart, this pain, this grief, this loss of a child that I was so desperate to feel with the coming of another child. But you know, I had to go through it again. I had to go through, it's just similar to when you've not had a child. I'm telling you, secondary infertility is just as challenging as when you have primary infertility. So I started the prayers, I started going for prayers, you know, in different places. I went to Clam, there's a church in Ojodu that do Wednesday programs. I went to many places just trusting the Lord for the fruit of the womb. I made vows, you know, and which I fulfilled. And eventually, after several years again, God blessed us with Kezia Lola Abolarinwa. And then when she was 2 years old, we also gave birth to our third born, Karen Oluwafikayomi Abolarinwa. So in retrospect, thinking about it now, and what I would advise women who are waiting on the Lord is that once you've spent about 3 years trusting God, I am a strong advocate of adoption. If I were to do it otherwise, do it differently from how I did it then, I think I would have gone ahead to adopt a child legally once it was getting to the 3rd year of waiting on the Lord. There are so many children out there waiting to be loved, you know. Recently, I went to a motherless babies home and I saw wonderful children at university level, at secondary school level, at primary school level, being trained, you know, by well-meaning, you know, Nigerians, well-meaning people of faith, taking care of these children. You can actually go in there and pick 1 or 2 of these children, you know, and be kind to them. you might be fortunate that after you adopt a child, you would have your own child, and that doesn't mean you then begin to treat the child any differently once you have your own child. No, you bring all of them together and train them in the fear and in the nurture of the Lord. And you might not have your child eventually, but you would, be known as a parent all your life, because really parenthood is not about the people you give birth to physically. I believe parenthood is everybody that you contribute and have meaning in their lives every day. So if I were to do it differently, I think I would have adopted earlier. Now I have a lot of children around me, apart from my own natural born children, children from church, children from relatives who come around here and there. So I would advise that you do that. And then another thing is never give up. A lot of people resign to fate, and they get depressed. They become very, very bitter and angry. You need to maintain a positive attitude. You need to maintain an atmosphere of praise. And I must tell you, that's the most difficult thing to do. When people say, praise the Lord in all situations, in all circumstances, it is easier said than done. Okay, you need to work on it. I remember when I was going through secondary infertility, going to the office, seeing people getting married and having children effortlessly. I didn't find it easy. So what I decided to do was to always have a song, in my mouth. So underneath my breath, as I was working in the office, I was always singing a song. I was always rejoicing. In fact, I think it even affected my temperament. I think I changed. I know I was born like a melancholic, but somehow I transformed to a sanguine. I became a complete extrovert. It's unbelievable. Honestly, it is unbelievable. And it is because of what I went through. I became an outgoing person. I became more cheerful. I was involved in organizing things, involved in church in ways I was never involved before, involved in people's lives. A new me came out. So I must say that I really learned through adversity. Like David said, that it was good that I suffered. Okay, so what I suffered, what I went through, brought out a better person in me. And it takes an honest effort. Depression is real. I've been through depression. I know what depression is. Okay, and I want to encourage everybody to walk through it. Don't just sit in your house moping around. Try and be active. I wouldn't suggest for any woman that is trusting God to just be a full-time housewife. It could be killing. Your husband goes out in the morning, you are all alone in the house, just cleaning, and it could weigh you down. So even if your husband does not permit you to do a paid job, try and get busy. We are in the world of social media. Buy and sell online. Even if you don't have your own products, you sell other people's products. Just keep busy. Be busy in church, be busy in your neighborhood, be busy around. Don't allow depression to set in. Ensure you exercise daily. Taking your multivitamins, they go a long way. And I've also learned that you need to study. Infertility can be overcome. Personally, I discovered that I had a wrong sense of timing of my ovulation. That is the absolute truth. I thought my ovulation was happening like 2 weeks after my period. I later discovered that it was actually a week. So all the while that I thought I was timing, intercourse and everything, I was doing it the wrong way. I was always missing the point I was ovulating by 1 week, until a Deeper Life pastor and his wife graciously lent us a book that I read, And in fact, in that book, I read that some people even ovulate while they are during their period. So the mentality that you are not supposed to make love during period and all could actually be working against some people. Because in that book, I discovered that some people, when they see like blood, they say, okay, they see one heavy flow of blood and they see a smaller flow of blood. That smaller flow of blood was them ovulating actually, okay? But they didn't understand that. So I would say to every woman trusting God for the fruit of the womb, you've got to do research. You've got to ask questions. You've got to study. You've got to understand your body. You can't just sit down and give up. You have to keep learning every day what else you can eat, what else you can drink. You've got to manage your weight. Some people's problem is overweight. If you're overweight, it's a challenge. If you're underweight also, that could be a challenge. So you've got to manage your weight, ensure you are on the right, BMI, that is the body mass index, that takes into consideration both your size and your height. Okay, so be conscious of that and then be prayerful. I know that God will answer each and every one of us. And while waiting, they said, what do people who are waiting do? They serve. So while waiting on the Lord, serve God to the maximum capacity. Volunteer to be a children's teacher if you can. The tears are going to drop. I remember there was a day a colleague invited me for a naming ceremony. You know, it was very challenging. This was somebody that got married right in my presence. Before you knew it, he had his first child. Before you knew it, the second child. It wasn't easy. But the Lord gave me a word. He told me, said, those that go out with tears, bearing precious seed, will doubtless return, having their sheaves with them. That day I didn't have much money, but I had 2,000 naira, so I put it in an envelope and I went to the naming ceremony after work. So it was dark at night. I got there, I was like the fun of the party, the heart of the party. I was laughing, jesting, making jokes, but I was crying in the car on my way to the naming. But when I got there, I immediately, became the life of the party and gave them the little I had. It was in tears. But I want to say today, shortly after that, I took in. That was when I was trusting God for my daughter during those periods of secondary infertility. So please, as much covenant practices as you know, please practice while you wait on the Lord. Ruth made a vow to the Lord, and when God blessed her with Samuel, she was faithful to fulfill it. And she had not just Samuel, she had several children afterwards. So that's my summary. I'm glad today that my table is surrounded with children. Each time I jokingly tell my husband that I want a set of boys now, to a twins. If I can be sure I'll have a set of twins, then I'll try again. It's always, saying that it's going to run away. I mean, to think that we were desperately looking for children at one time, and then today now we are avoiding children the best way we can. It can only be God. So, and I know He's going to change your story. He's going to give you a song in the night, and very soon you also will be celebrating.